I'm Frank Shi. This is The Wave. Thailand has made its strides in narrowing income inequality gap, but the progress has stalled since 2015. Average income in Bangkok was 6.5 times higher than that of the Northeast region. This inequality has significant consequences for student learning outcomes, labor force, and of course, household debt. COVID-19 pandemic also exacerbated the existing gap. Today's guest will be sharing his views on what the government should implement to further reduce the gap in between. Joining me now is Mr. Fabrizio Zarcone, World Bank Country Manager for Thailand. Thank you for joining me on the show.
Thank you to you and to ThaiPBS. It's a real pleasure for me to be here today.
Thank you. Of course, in the introduction, I talk about the World Bank report that you just released this month. Could you please walk us through the key findings in the report, because it's very significant for Thailand?
Sure, we'll be very happy to do it. I think it was an excellent report and an excellent opportunity. We launched it together with the NESDC. So we, in a way, we managed to put together findings of one and another institution with the hope that the messages and the recommendations will be taken up to the government. There's a lot to do in the new government, and our partnership with them is fundamental to spread these findings. Let me tell you something quick about the general picture. First of all, the fact that the Gini index, which is the representative of inequality in Thailand, is at around 43.3%. And that's not a good news. Thailand is still the first per income inequality is the first in Thailand, but also on the account of other indicators like education, as you said, or special inequality, it fares pretty bad. The efforts in reality have been enormous in past years, and indeed poverty and inequalities have been reduced. Still, they are quite high, so there is a lot on the government side to be done to reduce such inequality. The findings of the report are focused on three main areas. One is the education that you just touched upon. It is very true that the reports touch on learning, on education, on skills in many sections, because we find that education is fundamental to reduce inequality in the country. The recent PISA results are another alarm bell for that. They were already not particularly positive in 2018, and now in 2023 the picture is not as good as we wanted this to be. Two examples about, as people know in general, PISA is assessing the ability and the skills of 15 years old in reading, math, and science. Now, unfortunately for Thailand, 68% of the kids are not, of the 15 years old, do not possess the basic math skills that are needed at that age. And 65% do not perform adequately for the age in reading. So that's when I say that this is an alarm bell. So the education picture is gray. A lot of efforts has been done, but it's not enough for Thailand to become the high-income country that wishes to be. Two other elements to be considered: the spatial inequality, and that's, again, you touched upon this. You said 6.5 times the Northeast. So income in Bangkok is almost the one of an industrialized country. The problem is that the situation is very different in the Northeast, in the North, and in the South. So what are the efforts that we have to make. I think, and I want to point at this initially, we can discuss further on the development of secondary cities. This is a great opportunity that Thailand has. They are very dynamic. They are very willing to grow, to develop, to offer opportunities, but sometimes are constrained by a system that does not allow them to flourish as they could. Final point is also the gender side. We know that Thailand has been faring quite well on gender equality, but look at the number again. The World Economic Forum the report on gender equality of the World Economic Forum in 2022 says that Thailand ranks 8th in East Asia and Pacific among the most gender equal countries. And only, I think it's at around 70 something in relation to the worldwide category. So something needs to be done. And it is important to point out at the areas where something needs to be done. And the areas that we find where gender disparities are strong is, again, on education, on the learning side, but also on participation to political life. I was very curious, so I went and looked at the presence of parliamentarians, women parliamentarians. Well, it's 16% of the whole parliamentary forces. So there is still a lot to do on that side. So if we move in these three areas, fighting inequality in these three areas, I think Thailand can get out from this situation and really generate the basis for long-term development.
Very good point there. As you point out, many issues that we will talk about further, but eventually I think it gets back to the policy from the government. How would they really, of course, solve this issue or tackle on? I want to give our viewers the data here. Of course, you talk about the Gini index. According to the Gini index, Thailand is the highest level of income-based inequality in East Asia and the Pacific. There's another finding. In 2021, 10% of Thai held over half of country's income. It's a very, very high level there.
If you don't mind, there is another one that is even more striking. This is income. When we go to wealth, an example of wealth is land. 10% of the population owns 75% of the wealth of the country. It's pretty striking.
10% of Thai owning 75% of
the wealth.
Of the wealth. So you see, actually, it's very staggering data for us and what the government should do. So I want to getting into one of the issues that we just talk about, education. So in your World Bank report, I quote, there's a very, very significant sentence here. Inequality in Thailand starts very, very early in life. What's your suggestion to tackle this structural issue to shrink unequal distribution of opportunities for children? Because, of course, they are the future owner of the country. They should get educated properly.
Absolutely, yes. That's quite a striking finding for us, and it's in the context of what we call lifelong learning. When you are a small kid, you start having the opportunity to set up all the bases, all the skills, what we call and define foundational skills that will allow you to learn throughout the years all the other skills. And to learn, actually, to learn to read, to learn math, to learn science. So without those fundamental skills, you cannot continue. And here, one of the most important role played by the education system, but it goes also beyond education, is the early child development. So when you say, what can we do? It's through early child development. And let me tell you that Thailand is not faring bad on this. There are early child development centers throughout Thailand. Now, how effective they are? How are they preparing these kids these little students to shape themselves to be the citizens of the future. And that's there where a lot needs to be done. A few days ago, I visited Surin province, and I visited at least 3 or 4 centers, and they are supported by one foundation that we as a World Bank support through our community campaign. It's a sort of system that allows World Bank employees to support certain causes, and this is one of them. Well, this foundation supports early child development centers to provide exactly those skills that are missing in other centers, and we looked at the difference. So how to learn to become autonomous, to have an autonomous thinking, to face problems, difficulties, and also to have those social skills that are fundamental in life. There is another element, however, in this early child development, which is not only schools, but is access to basic education, is access to basic services. And then a very important thing is the family, how your family is supported. And here we will see the differences. And again, that cause the perpetuation of and stagnation of the intergenerational mobility, which is the role that your parents are playing. When you're poor, your parents are poor. One thing that I learned very recently, one out of 5 children age 0 to 4 do not live with their parents.
Wow.
What happens?
Yes.
In the provinces, people need to go from the provinces to Bangkok to find, or to other big centers to find job opportunities. And they leave them with their grandmothers, with their aunts, with the rest of the enlarged family. But the impact is enormous. And we did studies not only in Thailand, but elsewhere. I come from Central America many years, where a similar situation happened because parents were obliged to leave the country to work in the United States. Here, Thailand is lucky because his workforce is retained in Thailand. But unfortunately, it goes to the big centers like Bangkok. That's when we talk about special redistribution. We are making a favor to parents and their kids as well. So it's a big picture on how to give this foundational strength to these kids that goes through parenting, through provision of services, from the basic ones, including water. There are areas in Thailand where drinkable water is not available. And then strengthening the health services and the education services to them. That's the way you give a round set of opportunities to the kid to grow and become, as I said earlier, the citizen of the future.
You talk about many good points there, many questions that I want to ask, but I have to go through. I think, talk about, again, the 1 out of 5 children, they have to stay with their grandparents or other relatives because of their parents have to move to Bangkok for jobs. And it, of course, I think influence their psychological issues too, absolutely. And their living environment, you point out some of those children, they couldn't get pure water, clean water. This already affects their environment, living environment, and their will to go to education because they do not have that kind of environment too. Of course, I think the result of what you said about the lack of quality living environment lead to lack of shortage of labor force too, or the quality of labor force. But the reason is spatial disparities because, of course, the government should have a policy to make the inequality in between the regions to make it more equal. So in the report, you talk about spatial disparity have caused income inequality in different regions in Thailand. What could the government do to diminish disparities between regions. Of course, we talk about Northeast region, which is one of the poorest region in Thailand, comparing to Bangkok. So, of course, the situation there is dire. What the government should do?
I think there are simple and less simpler instruments for the government to address the issue. Just one piece of information related to Bangkok. Bangkok produces 1/3 of the GDP of the country, but it receives more than half of the budgetary of the budget at disposal for investment. So that tells you already something. Why are we focusing only on Bangkok? And why do not we give opportunity to secondary cities? There are very vibrant cities in the north of the country, but also in the south, but they are not exploiting all these opportunities that they have. So the fiscal lever is one of them, and so through different transfers to cities and the opportunities to cities to finance their own investment. This is the immediate way for the government to reduce the spatial disparity, because you give more financial resources also to other cities. But this is also linked to the investment part. So these cities will have opportunity to invest in a series of services and therefore attract the private sector and the creation of jobs. But also with additional resources, you can improve education and learning and skills, not only to attract new blood into the job world, but also to give opportunity to the ones who were not properly trained to be trained. So in a way, little by little, you generate all these conditions that allow people to stay and to live where they are. This is where the government can make a difference. We as a World Bank, for example, have been pushing the infrastructure agenda, but that type of infrastructure that is linked more to innovation, to technology, in order to create other poles in the rest of that, other than Bangkok, in the rest of Thailand, that can attract private sector development and new jobs. Thailand is already doing quite a bit in a series of large infrastructure projects, for example, to link different areas of the country, for example, the rail, but also highways and other important infrastructure. Well, this needs to be continued. Services, providing services or giving opportunities for the most fragile areas, for example, to develop. I always talk about the 9 plans that exist in order to prevent floods and droughts. Well, here, floods and droughts, who do they affect most? The agriculture. Also the industry, I must say, because if a flooding as the one that happened in 2011 affect an industrial area, the damage is enormous, but also in agriculture. And what do we find in the report? That 70% of the poor in the country are in the agricultural sector. So when you have an opportunity to develop the agricultural sector and you give more certainty and higher salaries to farmers, you are doing a lot of difference. You're making a big difference.
And actually increasing the farmers' salary is not just beneficial to farmers, to their family, to their children. It's to future generation too.
And you're giving them opportunities.
Yes. Giving them opportunities, the word opportunity here, and more equal opportunity.
Exactly.
I think you talk about the spatial disparity here, very good point, as in you point out, government, they have the centralized policy. They want to develop Bangkok or around the area, industrial area, including EEC, Eastern Economic Corridor. But how about if they can inject other budget in other provinces and to develop them together with Bangkok. That's the key. You talk about agricultural industry, enhancing the incomes for those workers in agriculture industry is very, very significant because that helps to shrink the income gap, to improve education opportunity for children whose parents work in the industry. What sort of solution that the government could do to help those agricultural and farmers and other relevant workers in agriculture industry?
You know, a lot has been done.
Yeah.
I think one of the most important leaps that Thailand did in the past is the move of the big masses from the agricultural sector to the manufacturing, and finding new opportunities and higher salaries. Now the system has got slower. From 2015, the system that has allowed Thailand to be a leading exporter is sputtering in a way. It's becoming slower and slower. So while we need to be more innovative on this system and embrace technical innovation, the green revolution, so this is something that can be done also to give more opportunities in the agricultural sector to move towards these new sectors. But this means reskilling them. But in the agricultural sector, the same innovation and technology can make a lot of difference. And this basically means increasing productivity, diversifying crops, creating insurance systems, social protection for farmers. There is a complex system of subsidies that has worked so far. You know, the rice one is not really the most famous and efficient one. There are other ways to support farmers in increasing the technological knowledge, to increase the knowledge on crops, to become experts in their sectors, and therefore increasing their income, and therefore, because that's a generational matter, giving more opportunity to their children.
So of course, how to reskill, upskill, it's very important. From the government, of course. Of course, you talk about they already give subsidy to them, they already give support for agricultural industry, but there has much more to be done to help.
And more long-term.
Long-term
So
policy.
the way this needs to be done is not to provide a short-term support, is to provide them the tools to maintain themselves and to prosper in the future.
I will ask about the digital money later, but of course it links to that too. Aging population in Thailand is getting, of course, larger and larger, and it poses risk to Thailand's labor force too. What other policy could government implement to tackle labor shortage? Because I just interviewed one of the leader in the country in business community, and of course the high level told me that labor shortage is a very, very risky problem for Thailand. What could the government do?
It is a problem. So there are a number of things that can be done, and I think the government has the willingness to do it. I think the government recognizes the issue and is thinking about the future. But there are a number of things that we have highlighted in this report, but also elsewhere. One of the typical things is that if you have less people working, you have to make the remaining ones more productive.
Yes.
So increasing productivity in the labor force is one of the options. But how do you do it? You have to open up your economy. You have to embrace what comes from outside, the experiences, the knowledge that comes from outside. That's why for us, the opening of the services sector, which is also for high-skilled workers and that provides higher salaries is an opportunity. It's not a indiscriminated sort of opening, but it needs. Thailand is very open in many aspects, but this one is one where bigger efforts need to be done. So in one way you increase productivity and therefore in a way you need less people. But then there is reservoir that we haven't used properly, which is the gender angle, women. So let us have them in the market, and let's increase their skills in order for them to have access to high income jobs, not only to low income jobs. There are cultural aspects that need to be considered. There are barriers that are often cultural that need to be broken and allow them to join the market. This would incredibly improve the situation. If I'm not mistaken, there is a possibility to with the right policy, to include 3 million women in the market. Imagine what it is. And then I think Thailand is I am very pleased to see how Thailand is such an open market, for example, for migrant workers. There are complexities in this market, but still Thailand is very open to migrant workers from Myanmar, from Laos, from Cambodia, and they are another important reservoir to fill the gap that you were mentioning earlier. Now, often these are low-skilled jobs, so it is also a task of Thailand and the private sector particularly, but together with the public sector, to reskill and requalify these people when needed. High skills are still very much in demand, so it's through the opening that the private sector can acquire those skills.
Many points that you talk about, comprehensive talks there. Actually, the context you give it to us, the migrant worker here, of course, is one of the drivers for Thailand. How to open up again and, of course, reskill for them. Secondly, I think I want to talk about the topic of gender equality, of course, in the labor force, in the labor market. Of course, in this report, we talk about gender equality, inequality too. Women's participation in labor market is very important. Given that we talk about labor shortage is a very risky issue for Thailand, women's participation could be one of the solutions for that. Can you elaborate a little bit more about the women participation, why this is important for Thailand, and how the government should actually push women's participation in the labor market is the key.
So it's again, as I was saying earlier, it's a very complex issue because there are many aspects. Some of them are economic, some of them are cultural, but it doesn't have to prevent the government to find a set of policies that allow women to enter the job market. And again, this starts when they are little students. So the perception that women will have only specific careers, the perception that is the women that are going to take care first of the children and then of the elderly. So these are perceptions that needs to be dispelled. When we provide to the young women already, to the little students, the knowledge necessary to be leaders, to acquire their skills in STEM, talking mathematics, we're talking science, we're talking technology. When we give them this certainty, this of opportunities of the future, I am pretty sure that women will invade the market of labor, and it's going to be a very positive thing for Thailand. And in terms of government policies, and I go back to the ECD, the issue of daycares, the issue of giving them the opportunity to leave their children and having their job opportunities is one of the most important elements. It's just through this certainty that a woman can feel reassured to face the job market. Many, it's not one recipe. There are many little things that need to be done throughout the life of the woman, including retrain and reskill the ones who have, for example, for family reason, abandoned the job market for long.
But how to make them come back to the market is the key, the upskill and reskill, and how to open up the cultural, limitation there is
Right.
very important too. Next topic, of course, I know the government right now, they are trying to incentivize, to propel the economy of Thailand. Of course, they say that they want to implement the digital wallet scheme to give 10,000 baht to more than 50 million Thai citizens. Do you think this policy could, enhance the income inequality in Thailand? This short-term policy, what could that really help Thailand? And what's your suggestion for the long-term policy too? Because actually we have another policy from the government. They want to increase the minimum daily wage to around 400 baht per day.
Right.
What's your thinking?
Right. So first is the 10,000 baht. It's a measure that is clearly short-term, but the government says that is a short-term measure. For the government is going to kickstart the economy and give opportunity to people to consume, and then the economy really to start moving again. The analysis, there are many numbers around, but we can say that if the 10,000 baht is implemented the way we are seeing it, because it's not finalized, yet it could increase 1% of GDP in a relatively short period of time, 1 year. That's what we have seen. It depends on the whole dynamics, how the money will be spent, on how the inventories, if there are inventories in place, because if there are many inventories in place, the possibility is that those inventories will be consumed and there will not be extra production. And then for us as a World Bank, it's a matter of a trade-off. Here you are spending 3%, approximately, a little less now with the recent reduction, 2.7% of the GDP. It's quite an important amount. You can spend it to revive consumption. You can spend it in part to revive consumption or to support the poorest segments of the population and to stimulate the investment. So if part of that amount is addressed to investment, and there are many interesting plans, many solid plans prepared by the administration of this country that needs to be financed. In the bank, we are very willing to support, but it's a partnership that usually put together resources from the public sector, resources from the World Bank, resources from the private sector, and stimulate the investment. This is for us the long-term part. But it can be done in this way, but if the government is willing only to focus on stimulating consumption, well, there's a lot of money to stimulate consumption there. There are issues on being an economy that is focusing too much on consumption rather than on saving and investments. And I think a little alarm bell, which is not that little, is the household debt that you mentioned at the very beginning. This should give us also the sense of how much we want the population to consume or getting used to consumption only while the investment part is lacking.
Yes, because the budget there of what, like 500 billion baht there. So this is the helicopter money that the government want to disperse to the government, of course, 50 million Thai citizens. And you talk about maybe some experts and advisors have the same opinion like you have, say that actually we can use this very colossal budget to be put into the targeted area to improve people's lives, no matter, of course, as what you said, to enhance the income inequality here too.
Yeah.
But this is the government policy right now we can see.
Yeah, there was actually, I forgot, you mentioned a very important part, that is not only the 10,000 baht policy, there are subsidies already given to a lot of basic items, reasons why inflation is so low in the country. But these are still subsidies that come from budgetary sources. And then there is the possibility of increasing the salary. How this is going to affect the economy is always difficult to say. The private sector doesn't seem to be the happiest, but it's a possibility also to, again, increase income of people. But this needs to be evaluated carefully.
So you talk about household debt too. 90% of GDP of Thailand. It's a very, very large amount. And Thailand's government, we will see how the government tackle these issues because they have to do it imminently. Last question, very fast. Are you still positive about Thailand's economy in 2024? Yes or no?
I am the biggest fan of Thailand in 2024 and beyond.
Great.
Absolutely, yes. I think the potential of Thailand is incredible.
Yes.
And we look forward really to working with the new government to make this a reality. Thailand can be a leader in East Asia, in Southeast Asia, and has certainly a bright future, I would say.
Thank you so much for today's comment. Very good insight here. Mr. Fabrizio Zarcone, World Bank Country Manager for Thailand. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
More news to come.